Welcome back. Our second guest is men's coach and registered nurse, Kosta Michalopoulos, and he's here to talk to us about how men experience grief and loss. Welcome to the program, Kosta.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa.
In what way do men experience grief?
Unfortunately or fortunately, grief and loss is part of our journey, and as men, traditionally we don't know how to deal with this. So what is grief? Grief is, there is this beautiful quote that says, grief is the unresolved love, the love that has nowhere to go. And it's the direct result of loss. And loss, it's not necessarily the loss of a loved one, which obviously, that's quite obvious, but it might be the loss of a pet, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, career, migration, moving to a different country. That, all these life events, which they are part of our normal life, can create grief. And the first thing that we tend to do is try and suppress it, try and move on. And that comes back to how we have been raised, what is the narrative that's been handed down to us, how to deal with these emotions, or how not to deal with the emotions. Unfortunately, we tend to suppress, we tend to minimize the impact that it has on us, on our emotional, physical, intellectual well-being. It has such a profound impact, but still yet these days, the modern man still doesn't know how to process this.
What consequences are there for men if they don't process their grief?
Unfortunately, the consequences are quite significant. Starting from our mental health, the unprocessed grief can look into the isolation of trying to suppress our emotions, trying to be stoic and move on with life. And there is this quote that men always use, time heals everything. Unfortunately, time doesn't heal anything. If we leave it, it will surface sooner or later. And that can look sort of through depression, anxiety, unprocessed grief, trauma. So some physical symptoms and physical impact on our body can be chronic pain, chronic diseases, and there is enough research that shows that the impact that the unprocessed grief has. Also, relationships, how we process grief has a direct impact on our relationships, our relationship with our loved ones. I think personally, looking back into my own experience when I was riddled with loss in my life and I didn't know how to process grief, I pushed my loved ones away. And they didn't know how to deal with this. And that creates complex layers in the relationships, layers of resentment, layers of isolation, of the inability to emotionally express what's happening. And the relationship, that can have a significant toll on the relationship. Sometimes the relationship breaks, or sometimes the person who is experiencing grief might look into different avenues of managing this, where there is addiction. And addiction can be gambling, it can be alcohol, substances. It's a way of numbing the pain. And men don't know how to actually approach the loved ones, other men, and seek help. And that's one of the most important steps in the process of managing grief. Having the awareness, understanding of what's happening, allowing space and the time to process all these emotions that come with it, and seek help, whether it's help from the loved ones or seek help from professionals. So I would also like to mention that the impact that the unprocessed grief has on men's mental health, and looking at the statistics in Australia, 3 out of 4 suicides are men, unfortunately. And this has become almost an epidemic. And us men, and it's not just a problem for us men, it's a societal problem. So we need to find ways how to actually manage the emotions, how to actually seek help and reach out.
Do you have any advice for a man experiencing grief and loss?
First thing is acknowledging our grief. And that's not easy. That's not easy because we have been told how to keep moving on, how to be stoic, how to be resilient, how to be strong. by allowing and understanding that the grief lives inside of us is the most important step, and sometimes even the hardest. How do you actually acknowledge that grief? How do you get in touch with that grief inside of you? Speaking about it. Speaking about the loss, speaking about your emotions, speaking about how it's impacting your life. And then sit with it. And that's something that we hear all the time. Sit with your emotions. What does it actually mean? Allow the space to see, what's coming up without any substances, without any interruptions, without the noise. What is grief saying? Is it we missing our loved one? Is it readjusting to a new life? What is it? Is it pain? Is it a sadness? Understanding all this. And then, what do we do with this? Grief, it's like a journey. Some days are better than others. Understanding that and allowing again the kindness within ourselves to process this, to understand this, without trying to suppress it. And that's a journey. But this is not just that, it's not just that internal dialogue on a daily basis, it's actually seeking help. Seeking help, whether it's going to be through our family and our loved ones, and have the conversations, but also seeking help for us men, whether it's going to be a men's group. Finding other men that might be experiencing something similar and share. And then if things obviously are not progressing as expected, or life is, because we know life is not easy, seek professional help. Seek the help of a counselor, of a psychologist, and speak with your local doctor, especially when things get really overwhelmed.
Thank you, Kosta. That's been a really meaningful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you'd like to know more about how men experience grief and loss and Kosta, go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.